Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your boy Jamsys, back at it again with another post-up video. But SG decided to buff Death Dealer Ray for like, I think it's the second time. So we're on like 3.0. And if you haven't been exposed to the info, apparently he's really broken, but I would want to test him out first. And as someone who pulled 2 of them on the first banner, because I was chasing for book, I'm very excited to find that this unit has any use. Those are my DDR stats. They're not the best, but it's not like bad either. I think it's like 400 total gear score, which is not bad for like a tank or whatever. But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential with DDR actually, because now that they made his S3 strip, it improves his matchup a lot against immunity setters. And those are basically like LRK plus hand guy, since like DGB's basically died off in the meta. But here we go, my opponent sees DDR and they pick hand guy, and my opponent picks Lionheart, which is a little strange, because if I wanted to go full cleave here, I could have. I am gonna slam 2 openers here, but that doesn't make this cleave. I promise. This is way more degenerate than cleave. Like, so one big problem before with comps like these, like if I picked Zeo plus a bunch of openers, is that you kind of lack damage. Like, unless your openers were called like Pavel and Ran, you lack a lot of damage to actually dent the opponent's team. But DDR has some like pretty nasty combos, I'm not gonna lie. Like, if you combine DDR with Lua, you immediately do like 40% HP of everybody's max health, just like as a concept, which is like omega disgusting. My opponent last picks MLK, but like my DDR has 200F. Like, I have more than enough confidence that I'm gonna be able to strip him, and even if I don't, I'll just be able to soul burn with Knuckle. So we're bing chilling. We open up with Zeo, but my Zeo unfortunately only has around 100 effectiveness, so I'm not brave enough to run this into MLK, but we just run it into ML to push back, so we can't like cut while I'm in the middle of doing my full combo here. And ooh, we're about to do some really unethical things to this guy. I'm like, I apologize to this guy really hard. We basically bind his whole team. We seal Lionheart. We full reset hand guy. So like, this guy is not gonna get a turn in. And we're about to go for the second turn already with my team. So it's a little unfair, but this is like the potential of DDR, is that if you are really slow against DDR, you are threatened by this. I'm surprised that the MLK run didn't get slept here, but like it doesn't matter, because ignoring ER soul burn is fair and balanced. We all know this. My opponent's teams just keep getting skipped over, and look at the venom damage. 1 hit detonate on Venom is 78, which is like so insane to think about on a support unit. We blow up the Kron with the Venom proc plus Zeo damage. Now we're able to lay down even more Venom damage with our AoE Politica S2, and we pop ML and look how disgusting this is. My opponent has not been able to move a single time, and he's had like 5 debuffs on him at all times, so it's just pretty much over. The Venom damage is pretty disappointing on Lionheart, but that's because a bulk of her EHP comes from defense and not HP. But they only ended up getting 1 turn where they were able to press buttons, and that was the last turn because my Zeo didn't have enough damage to kill Stenny, which is quite tragic. But yeah, like DDR is so good. Like, I've tested him extensively in the past few days. Like, normally when I do like let's test videos, like I give up on the unit after like 2 or 3 hours, but I had like a solid like 5 or 6 hours on DDR, and it's just so fun. I think the problem with DDR is that he's really flexible of a unit. Like, yes, his S3 into S2 is a great combo, but you know how like Peva or Celia's don't actually have to press S3 or S2, they can just like hold it for the next time. You can basically do that with DDR too, and that really improves the matchup for like venom or whatever, like where you don't have to. you don't have to do an extra turn, or you can do what I'm about to do here. My opponent early picks Venom, and that's just mean English, and that just means I'm going to pick a bunch of extra turns, so I overwhelm him with extra turns, which sounds really strange to like on paper, but Bunny Dom's S2 actually has a really long cooldown of like 2 or 3 turns, and in those 2 or 3 turns I can more than happily dump my cooldowns into Venom. And then my opponent decides to go even squishier, so we're gonna pick DDR with even more openers, because why not? I picked Bryceria just because Bryceria is pretty good into winter, because you can make her unbuffable and then you can just hit her, which is one of her biggest weaknesses. Like, if you've ever played winter against like Pero or something, it is like the matchup's unplayable, so we're just recreating that matchup here. I don't actually have Pero geared right now, so we just pick Ran, which is the next best thing. You know, he threatens damage. He's a Bunny Dom procer that strips off all the important buffs. My opponent last picked Celine, and we really want to spam our non-attack abilities here since we have like 3 of them. So we ban ML Celine out. My opponent bans Bryceria either for their Celine or for their winter. So like I can see the reasoning behind it, but again, we're able to do very unethical things to this guy. Oh, it's the Eurofier. Okay. I think this guy's been in Legend before, but like he's in Fleet, so like you already know he's pretty good. But I don't think he's ready for what's going to happen here. I push back the Bunny Dom with Zio, and I go for the S2 onto Arrowwell. And remember, I want to overload Bunny Dom with the stuff. So like I press S2 on purpose. I strip Escort, even though I'm going to soul burn it off anyway, so it doesn't matter. And we did an S3 with Lua just because in the off chance that this winter was on summer, like the Celine artifact that pushes, I would at least get immunity before my DDR eats the S3 from winter. So we press S2, S3. My Rand's still on Silver Rain from Advent, which was like a month ago, but don't worry about that. We unfortunately do not strip the stealth off from winter, but that's fine, because DDR also strips now, and with 200 effectiveness, I really doubt this winter's resisting anything. But winter goes, he S3s the Zio, but it does no damage because it's the first proc and she needs time to ramp up. And since winter's S2 is on cooldown, we're literally just overloading non-attack skills. This Bunny Dom double resists me, by the way, which is kind of sick if you think about it, because my DDR has, I think, 100 more F than my Zio, which I don't know how I feel about that. But it's fine. We should still be able to win this. It'll just make it really close, depending on how much gear score and damage this Stenny is. But my things are tanky because, you know, DDR has EHP. My Lua's tanky. Zio has his like damage reduction passive. Like I'm hoping that maybe we'll be able to make it out decently well. We go ahead and kill Winter with Ran, which is like to be expected. And now we can kill off the Arrowwell with Zio thanks to the Death Break on Ran. We love ignore ER Soul Burn on this channel from Bryceria or Ran, though I don't really use Ran that much, so. I Soul Burn here just to prove to myself that I actually could CC this Bunny Dom, and she just double 15%ed me, which is a whole other conversation itself. We don't get a Death Break with Lua, but it's fine. I'm pretty sure that the Zio or Ran are gonna kill it, and Ran gives his whole team 2-turn immunity for some reason, so he can't even sleep any of my DPSs, and we're able to safely kill off the Bunny Dom here. And this is just like the hyper aggressive playstyle that DDR really allows, I think. And I'm like, I was in the gutter because I was having a really bad time dealing with the meta of like Aafine plus like 2 Soul Weavers and 2 other Knights, which really made me want to pull my hair out. But DDR single-handedly counters those kind of comps because by Frenzy 1, your Arrow is going to have like 10k HP, so like she's not mitigating shit. Anyway, we go for the S1 here, just in the off chance that I actually just sleep the Stenny before the game ends, because I was confident in my Lua's ability to lap, because she's like 310 or something. So we luckily are able to just barely speed past this Stenny, and judging by the damage, one S2 plus S3 or S2 plus S1 should be able to kill him off, and my opponent does decide to FF here, so like banger, you know. But yeah, if you haven't reset your Moonlight Connection for Fallen Lands, I would highly recommend you take DDR, because he's tearing up the meta in a big way. A lot of the top 3 crafters like AB are struggling to deal with DDR because in a vacuum, units like Designer Lilibet or Green Celine or even like Winter are good against DDR, but DDR has been buffed to a point where he's a standalone unit. He's like fully functional on him by himself. You don't really need to pick Solitaria with him or anymore. You don't need to pick injury units with him anymore. He's so like, his value is so front loaded that it really allows you to get away with some really nasty stuff. Especially since like low key, like you just need to press S3, like you just need to pump out your skills and you can die, which I really like as an aggressive unit. And he really allows a draft where you can pick pretty aggressively. My opponent first picked Theo here, but judging by their pre-bans, I didn't think they were a cleaver, because most cleavers aren't afraid of Lua because they'll just slam Zeo right into it. So I kind of like mind gamed, foresaw into the future that my opponent's just a standard player who's discouraging aggressive play by picking Zeo first. And judging by his second pick, A Taiwan, I was pretty right. Like, once you play like 500 games of RTA in a season, you kind of suss out these type of players. And they pick A Taiwan plus Karina, which is basically fodder for DDR. And I pick up Stenny just because she allows me to close out games against slower teams. Plus, she's booked for Knockwall if I really need to slow burn. If my opponent picks the Benimaru, I'm probably gonna have to ban it. But if they pick Edward, okay, so a lot of people think that Edward is actually really good into DDR, but let me tell you, he is not. Because one issue with Edward is that he gets overloaded. And this is true for Edward's matchup into a lot of heroes, like Edward versus Solitaria. When Edward starts to get overwhelmed by debuffs, he's kind of done. Like, if he ever gets overloaded by a Solitaria, the Edward cannot function for the rest of the game, because the Solitaria will basically start to lap him and CC him where he can't CR push back or CC the Solitaria back, which is really quite tragic. My opponent picks Designer a little bit, which is not a bad pick into my draft, and then they pick Edward. Like, a normal sane person in my position would probably pick like Aiden last pick or something and ban Designer a little bit, but I decided to go for the A Leica just to threaten that I'm going to ban, what is this thing called, that I'm going to ban Zeo instead. But, you know, like, if you picked Aiden here in the last slot, it would have had the same effect. Like, they probably would have banned it. My opponent should ban MO Leica, yeah. And we just put the bulk onto Bunny Dom and DDR because Stenny's just here to clean up, but she needs like beefy people in front to tank for her, which is basically what DDR and Bunny Dom is going to be doing. My opponent opens up with a Zeo, and judging by that Zeo HP, it might be either hybrid or full DPS, because those are the only Zeos with bulk. Like, full F Zeos are going to have like 8k HP. And it looks like I just 15% that silence, which kind of sucks for my opponent, but you know, not going to lose sleep over it.
Do you smell that?
I go ahead and steal this A Taiwan so I can start laying down debuffs, and then we put his whole team to sleep. And this is the thing, like, a lot of these anti-aggressive units, like Karina doesn't get slept here, which is something I'm not going to talk about, but a really fun thing with DDR is that he gives his whole team effectiveness buff. So this is low-key effectiveness Stenny, even though she has like 440 gear score in pure damage and bulk. And this is how you can cheat out a effectiveness Briar, just by having DDR on your team. Though I would not recommend picking Briar and DDR early, because you're going to have to fight like a bunch of anti-debuff units. And maybe as a 4-5. So my opponent basically is overloaded. Ed is overloaded here, and that means that he can't actually cleanse off this knockhole S3. So he can't counterattack with his S2, which I think is like so funny. And we do a bunch of injury damage because Venom is just really good against bruisers. We seal up this Edward because knockhole's S2 is on a 2-turn cooldown for some reason. My bunny's taking kind of a beating, which kind of sucks, but I do change her build. Not here, but like, oh, I think I didn't film it, but I did change my bunny down build so she's a bit bulkier to be better in this style. But we basically want to CC this Karina because we don't want her to be S3ing our GDR because our GDR again has no ER because he just needs effectiveness. Because after his S2 or S3, it doesn't really matter too much if he's alive or not. We get a lucky hit onto Zio and a Tywin. We don't splash into Karina, which is nice. A Tywin still cannot S3 because I think he's reset by Monk. But oh, it's kind of wild to see a control comp coming back into full swing. But here's where my artifact is really good. Like Water's Origin really heals you for a lot in these like situations where DDR is the one that ends up taking a lot of hits. And especially since he has a lot of HP, it's really nice to have. And then now we go for the kill onto Zio. I S2 here even though I don't seal anything just because I want to get the speed buff, and then we'll be able to get our S2 again just by cycling into our S3, which is like a whole other Omega Law on its own. We finish off the A Tywin with Aureus, and look at that, would you look at that, our knockhole S3 is back up, but I'm not too sure if I want to press it. Oh no, I just go for it. At this point, I don't think eating 1 or 2 Ed counter is going to change much in the grand scheme of things. We do eat the counter, but as long as we don't get like provoked or anything, it's fine. We get provoked on Steady, but it's not like I had Soulburn to actually Soulburn anything, so I'm fine with that. We reset Edward again, so he doesn't have S3, so it's kind of crazy how much cycling you're able to do. And there's no point in S2ing, so I decided to just go for the sleep onto Karina, and it's like a 75% chance that we get. And we get another Warrior's Origin proc from the Edward S1, so we've healed basically like almost a quarter of our HP. And then I find out this Karina is actually on what's it called? Counter set, which I was pretty surprised because a lot of people put their Karina gear onto Phyllis for Big P, but we basically CC his Edward again. Like, how many debuffs have you seen on Edward this game, by the way? And now Stenny's just able to take a turn and build him up with Frenzy and the detonation damage. So yeah, like this comp even works against like Designer a little bit. Like Edwards, you just have to support your DDR with, you know, units that aren't useless, like Edward or Designer a little bit. But I've been having a lot of fun with DDR. There's a lot of different ways to build DDR, by the way. The way that I built DDR is not the only way. Some people in Asia really like putting ER on their DDRs, but I just find it pointless because if you front load a lot of his value, it improves the matchup into a lot of things. Like you are able to CC some like lower ER Destinas since a lot of them are tanky. But we go into the next match and my opponent like very rudely bans my Lua and then first picks a DDR into me. And basically the one way I've been fighting DDRs a lot of these games is that you have to kind of out aggress. There's like two ways. You need to either be so tanky but also shake off debuffs at the same time, but not like also not die off to the rest of his team, which is like very difficult. Or you have to just play more aggressively than him, which is not hard considering DDR is like 102 base speed or something, which is pretty bad for like a unit that wants to go first. So my opponent picks Aophine and Destina, so they're like already trying to slow down and tank down my aggression, but we're not going to allow that to happen. We pick Briar Witch plus Stenny just because it counters a lot of his comp. Like he can't pick Aiden here anymore. He can't pick things that get countered by knockball. Elena's a really good one here because it relies, I have to rely on a 50-50 check into knockball, which kind of sucks. And the last pick, Edward. It's not great, but we can always seal him with... We can always seal him with knockball, so I don't mind. Like, I don't think I can pick Rand just because I have Bunny Dom and I can last pick something like Zio or something to fuck him up. So my opponent intelligently decides to pick not Rand in that situation, though I don't think Edward was the pick either, but that's fine. I was thinking of picking Zio because I saw the Rand, but it doesn't really help me here. I think I should pick something like Architect Leica in the last slot maybe, but I decided to just pick Aiden because, you know, it's pretty good into DDR. But I could have banned DDR for content, but I decided not to, just so I can show like how you can beat DDR really easily. My team is not really affected by the Edward counter because my Bunny Dom should be able to resist it and then cleanse off with Doctor's Bag. So I fully plan to just rip my Knockball S3 turn 1. And that's like basically what we're going to do. We get into the game. We luckily do outspeed this DDR, but this DDR is at 260 speed, which is pretty impressive. Because again, DDR's base speed is like in the dumpster. So this is like 17 or 18 average on DDR, which is not the gear type of gear I was willing to donate to my DDR, you know. But basically we rip S3. We go for the silence pushback onto Edward because I didn't want him to S1 something. I was afraid that the S1 would do too much damage to my Bunny Dom or something, but you know, hindsight is 20/20. But like, I don't know what I was thinking. Also, my Aiden got hit here, and this is like very bad foreshadowing because there's only one lose condition in this game, and that is my Aiden getting hit too many times by random things. So we decide to just go off and finish off the DDR here because he's gonna S3 and S2, and that means that our Aiden's gonna get hit, which really sucks, and I don't really want that. But basically, Edward's able to take a turn now. We miss on Aiden, which is pretty nice. We get a counterattack, and we would have lifestealed up. If we weren't full HP, but it's fine. We didn't hit Destina, but my knockball doesn't have enough effectiveness to hit Destina unless your Destina has like literally no ER. So I wasn't expecting that to hit anyway. So that's not too big of a deal. Yafine goes in for the S1, and our Aiden gets hit for the second time this video. And my opponent's like pretty much gonna take the 50-50 into Aiden, and they get it. So yeah, not great. I can seal off the Edward here, but like I just don't have the damage to break through his team anymore. Destina is basically gonna go and heal up the team, and then I just can't kill this Aafine in time before this Aafine kills me. Even though I have no mitt, because Bryce area does not do that much damage, unfortunately. And yeah, we basically just lose because Aiden gets hit, but yeah, not great, not great. Aiden, please do better. I'm so tired of you randomly losing games because you decide you want to lose. I don't even know why I'm playing this out. I'm just roping this guy. This guy is in our sister guild, and I talk to him sometimes, and I play some League with him sometimes where he feeds on NUNU, but like it's whatever. But this is another example of people playing aggressively into DDR but incorrectly. So this guy didn't pick any bridges into DDR, and that's gonna get him killed in this match because DDR counters Politis, DDR counters Aiden. DDR also is not bad into Aafine because you're able to CC Aafine so she can't counter but do heavy damage to her, and you put her in a position where she revives but she's like so heavily injured that it's easy to kill her. He also picked Rand into Bunny Dom, which is a whole other conversation in itself, but I'm not going to comment on that. We don't press Bunny Dom because we're not trying to die to a Politis right now. But we do press DDR as S3, and you know, if you didn't know, non-attacks like the activation abilities like Poultice do not activate if your name is not Celine. So basically, Poultice passive just goes away. We have a guaranteed crit onto Aiden now, and I don't want to wake up the entire team because I just put them to sleep. So I decided to go for the S1 onto Ran and finish him off with the detonation damage. But my opponent basically knew what was going to happen to him after that. So he decides to tap out. But yeah, that was my Death Dealer Ray showcase. I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thanks for your support and like and subscribe. And like, yeah.